In the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Guyana Defence Force stands as the guardians of our borders and protectors of our people. Some carry the scars of battle, others the weight of history. These are their stories, raw, unfiltered, and told in whispers until now.
Good morning. I am Warrant Officer Class One, retired Raul Patrick Rodney. So I was enlisted in the Guyana Defence Force on the 4th of March, 1993. And on retirement, I would have served 31 years and 7 months. So my journey in the Guyana Defence Force wasn't a planned one. I dropped out of school because of financial issues. My mother was struggling to upkeep financially myself and my siblings. And I took the decision to leave school so that it would ease that strain from her. But at the time that I took that decision, I did not have any plan in mind joining the Guyana Defence Force. But I have an uncle who was then a member of the Guyana Defence Force because he would have retired a while ago. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, do you want me to take you to my workplace to show you what we do there?" I said, "Yes, no problem." And eventually we went. And on the first day I met Warrant Officer Class One, Herbert McPherson, who was the Sergeant Major of the 107 Rocket Launcher Company. And he said in his own words, "Youngster, I think you should join the Guyana Defence Force." Of course, I ignored him because I had no intention of. It wasn't my intention to join the Guyana Defence Force. And he returned to me later in the day and said, "Hey, I think you should join the Guyana Defence Force." And I said, "I'm not interested. I just came here because my uncle asked me to do that." Later in that day, he came and he asked me to do some writing for him, some signal writing, to transfer some notes from one notepad to another. After completing those notes, he told me, he said, "You know, based on your writing here, I think you're a good fit for the Guyana Defence Force." And then he asked me at what stage I left school, and I told him I dropped out of school because of financial issues. However, I have no intention of joining the Guyana Defence Force. Like 2 days after, because I spent like a week thereabout on the base. Like 2 days after, he came to me and he said, "Our recruitment is ongoing and I think you should go write the exam." That's right on the base in Camp Grooms. That's up the Linden-Suzaik Highway. Reluctantly, I said no again, but I decided to go. Still not with the intention of joining, I just want to fulfill what he was asking me. I went, I wrote the exam, and the results came back, I topped the exam. And then he continued to pursue the issue of me joining the Guyana Defence Force, and eventually not caving, but he said, "Okay, all right, I'm going to join." So I started to make that preparation. I went on the recruit course. I did my initial training. And on completion of that training, I was posted right back to the 201 Artillery Battalion under the same Sergeant Major that was encouraging me to join the Guyana Defence Force. And then my career took off from there. Yeah, so like I said, after completing the recruit course, I was sent right back to the 201 Artillery Battalion under the same command structure that I met that was encouraging me to join the Guyana Defence Force. My career took off from there. I continued to excel in all the courses that I did. And when I became in fact, I went and I completed the platoon sergeant's course locally here in Guyana. And then I was selected for the advanced platoon sergeant's course in the United States with the United States Marine. which was challenging also, very challenging for me because the training was definitely different from what we do here. So during my stint in the GDF, as I excel in rank, the responsibilities became more difficult. Two of my more challenging experiences that I would like to share with the general public is one, that of the Sergeant Major for the Colonel Ulrich Pilgrim Officer Cadet School, which was between the year 2009 to 2014. Right? It was an opportunity that I took very passionately because at the school as a warrant officer, I had that opportunity to mold the young officers, to produce young officers that would be leaders in the Guyana Defence Force. To date, there are a number of them still in the Guyana Defence Force too, which I'm very proud of. Right? Two of my other challenging appointments was that of the base sergeant major and the force sergeant major. But I want to speak to the appointment of the base sergeant major force. That appointment in itself is very challenging because you have to deal with a diverse set of officers, men and women, administratively, while at the same time ensuring that the base security and all the other admin aspects of the base is maintained to a standard, right? And at the same time, you get to interact with different people from all over the place. But as the force sergeant major, right, opportunity is much greater because while as the base sergeant major, you get to interact with people at a certain level, as the force sergeant major, you get to have the opportunity to interact with officers at the highest level of the Guyana Defence Force, which includes the current Chief of Defence Staff and past Chiefs of Staff. In the earlier stage of my career, between that rank of a Lance Corporal and a Sergeant, that was most challenging because, like I said, initially, it wasn't my intention to join the Guyana Defence Force. So I was still adjusting up to the rank of a Sergeant. But then in the year 2000, I was selected from the 2nd Artillery Battalion to serve at the training corps. And I want to tell you frankly, I was scared. I was scared here that I have to go to training corps because I wasn't a person like to be among people and, dwelling among people and conversating and so on. But I know at the time of training corps, as an instructor, you have to be talkative. You have to be knowledgeable. I had the knowledge, but me being that not wanting to speak a lot with people, that was my issue. Warrant Officer Class One, Clarence Welch, retired. He's retired also. He was the regimental sergeant major for our training corps. He came to me at lunch one day and he said, "Sergeant, you know your post is a training corps?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Yes, let me see you there this afternoon." So I got nervous. I left my lunch, got up, and I went out straight to my room and I lied down. I was like, what is going on here? And then in the afternoon session, I went to the office to my officer commanding, who was then Lieutenant Colonel George Lewis. And I told him, "Sir, I was informed that I'm being posted to training corps." He said, "Yes, but I don't think I can afford to lose you now. So I'll speak to the commander." So I got a reprieve, like, oh, yes. As I know my commanding officer was a strong leader. And 2 days after, he said, "Hey, we're going to hold on the training corps for now." But then the other year, the same issue arose. But he wasn't there then. And I had to go to training corps. When I turned up at training corps, I was greeted by Warrant Officer Class One, Clarence Welch, who informed me that you will be an instructor on the platoon commander's course. I said, "RSM, platoon commander's course? I now come here? Why are you putting me to that level?" He said, "Because I know you." He said, you go there, you're gonna excel. My first class I could remember. It's a good thing there was a lectern there. If there wasn't a lectern there, you would have seen how I was shaking. But then the delivery, because I knew the content of the lesson, the delivery was put over well. After that first lesson was completed, I realized that training was my calling. So I started to take it very seriously in terms of my delivery of lessons and prepare myself long before all the lessons were to be delivered. Thereafter, another shocker in my career was in 2009 when I was called to be the Sergeant Major for the Colonel Ulrich Pilgrim Officer Cadet School. Again, as a staff sergeant then, I was nervous because I understood the transition from dealing with officers and soldiers now to molding new entrants, new officers in the Guyana Defence Force. So I decided to take it in good stride. I did my preparation, did my research. And the force course, like any other thing, it was a kind of a challenging, it was a test alike for me because it was my first time being Sergeant Major for that level of grouping of men and women. We had a lot of challenges. A few of our guys were sent home because of misconduct, but that did not stop the course from continuing and eventually graduating in that very year. Back in 2022, Command Sergeant Major Jones, who was the Command Sergeant Major for the Southern Command, U.S. Southern Command, he was here on a visit. And at lunch, he pitched an idea of us collaborating, Guyana and the US collaborating at the senior enlisted leaders level to conduct a jungle symposium. Now, for those of you who don't know what is a jungle symposium, right? It's a kind of an exercise where persons from different countries, jungle experts, wanting for a better term, from different countries will meet and will exchange their techniques, tactics, and procedures in how they operate in the jungle. At the time when the idea was pitched, I said, okay, let us see how we can execute this. On conclusion of that discussion, I went to the Chief of Staff, who was then Brigadier Godfrey Bess, and I shared with him the idea while marketing it. Of course, how it's going to benefit the NCO score, how it's going to project Guyana Defence Force, how it's going to project the country. And he bought into the idea and he said, okay, FSM, start your planning and execution. I'm going to support you 100%. Mind you, nothing like this was done before in this part of the hemisphere. So this was the first jungle symposium to be conducted. We started the planning phase and everything was going well. And I started to think to myself, ask myself, you know, as a warrant officer, how am I gonna conduct this exercise, owing that it is done on an international level? I had the support system, but then it was me who was part of the planning team. I had no in-depth jungle knowledge, but I have some jungle knowledge because all of the courses that are conducted by the Guyana Defence Force, you'll usually have to go to the jungle school to do a stint of jungle training. And then I reached out to Captain Dover, and he would have assisted us greatly. I think without his intervention, I don't think we would have been that successful. So he assisted us with all the programs, all the exercises, both here, because the Jungle Symposium was a 4-day symposium. 2 days was conducted in classroom. And 2 days was conducted in the jungle area. In fact, 1 day was conducted in the jungle, the other day was for travel. So at the first symposium, first iteration, we had a number of 11 countries that attended. We had 8 in person and 3 virtual. Even though the space was inadequate, the symposium itself was well delivered, well put over, and was well received. It was even aired on the United States website globally. On the conclusion of that symposium, I reported back to the Chief of Staff and the General Staff, who was then Colonel Skeet, and I wrote a report on the success of that symposium. 1 week after, I received a call requesting for me to host again the second iteration of that Jungle Symposium. Of course, I took it with open arms because now I have the experience. And the second one was planned and conducted, executed, and it was even better than the first one. But I know generally the general thought process is that in most cases, whenever there are exercises or conferences of this magnitude, based on the Guyana Defence Force culture and the posture, there should always be an officer in charge. But in my case, I did not have an officer in charge. It was conducted by senior enlisted leaders. That is one of these part of my story that I'm very proud of. I want to speak to my operational time in Haiti. That is 1994. I was selected. In fact, the Haiti operation, it was very scary. On the initial stage where we had our first contingent going out to Haiti, because the first contingent went early in 1994, right? And then there was a second contingent to which I was part of. So on the initial stage of selection, a lot of soldiers were scared to go because we were hearing a lot of different stories coming out of Haiti from those portions that was there and from what you read on the internet and from the World Wide Web. So when persons were selected, they were hesitant. They were hesitant in being part of the process. But during my period when I was selected, I was happy to go because I'd always wanted to be in some action. So as I was selected to go to Haiti, that's in 1994. On touching down in Haiti, we were briefed. And then I was selected to be part of the battalion structure as the COS, which is the BOS, which is the Battalion Orderly Sergeant. Then they call it, that's what the Bajans call it, because I was under the Bajan structure because the battalion Sergeant Major was Sergeant Warrant Officer Class One Bledman, and the CO was Major Nurse, both from Barbados Defence Force. So I was the clerk for the battalion, who was responsible for duties and all other filings for the battalion and the headquarters. But on the onset, I realized that the commanding officer wasn't too pleased with whatever I did wasn't pleasing to him. You'd always find some mistakes and, So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not comfortable here. So I started to behave a little sloppy also, Turn up a little late for work, leaving the office without informing anybody, gone, rest down under the tent, And so he calling me often, sends people to call me. And I guess it started to get to him and he said, Lance Corporal, I'm going to post you out to the operational battalion. So I was like, okay, sir. And the very next day, I was detached to the Trinidadian platoon. I spent like 3 weeks with that platoon, and myself and 3 others, we were selected to work with the US Special Forces because it was around election time, and those guys were mostly in the capital of Haiti, which is Port-au-Prince. So I spent the greater part of the stint in Haiti with the US Special Forces preparing for elections. And that gave me the opportunity to tour Haiti almost in its entirety. But then there were days where we would have had to take evasive actions based on the climate at the time. People blocking the road, people shooting at us, those things. Those are things that I experienced. I want to speak up on another overseas experience. The Guyana Defence Force have a culture of shifting around its warrant officers from one unit to another, right? Just to have that experience. So in 2018, I was posted to the Coast Guard as the Fleet Chief Petty Officer. And initially I was kind of questioning the decision. Coast Guard, this is out of my workspace. I have no Coast Guard knowledge, or coastie knowledge, so you want to say. Wanting for a better term. I have no coastie knowledge. So, not sure how I'm going to fare at the Coast Guard. And the base commander then, who was Lieutenant Colonel Denzel Carmichael, said to me, BSM, you're going to hold on here, even though the postings came out, you're going to hold on here and see how this is going to play out. So I stayed at the base 3 months after the postings, which is instructions. Yes, 3 months after the postings. And at one of our ceremonial functions, that was a dinner night, the then Chief of Staff, was Brigadier Patrick West. He saw me at the dinner and he said, Warrant Officer, why you're not at the Coast Guard as yet? And I explained, he said, I don't want to hear that nonsense. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, you must wake up at the Coast Guard. So the very next day, even though I did not leave the base, this very base here, I went to flag raising at the Coast Guard. And I started the handover takeover process. And there my Coast Guard journey began. Like 3 months into the journey at the Coast Guard, I was selected to attend another overseas training. This time it is Coast Guard. It was Coast Guard related. On receiving the information, I went to the commanding officer, sir, I don't think I'm the best candidate for this training because I don't have no Coast Guard knowledge. I think you should select, and I called the name. And that was written, and the note was sent back to Defense Headquarters, and then it was returned with a note saying the Fleet Chief will attend this course. And that was instruction from the Chief of Staff. So, okay. So I started my preparation. When I got to California, the Coast Guard base in Petaluma, I had the initial meet and greet and introduction and settle in. And then on the very first week, after the first week of initial training, we were given a test. And I failed. I failed the test. And then I started to question myself because the course itself is Coast Guard related. I have no Coast Guard knowledge. I started to question myself, like, why am I here? What am I doing here? And then I made a conscious decision. I said to myself, you know what? You can't fail this course. It's going to put a shame on your family. It's going to embarrass the Guyana Defence Force. You're going to embarrass yourself when you go back. People are going to look at you differently. So you must do something. And then I started to read the manuals that they gave us, but it wasn't of much help. And then I went and I confronted Google. And Google became my friend. And from then on, everything was simplified because of Google. Every time there's a problem or a concept that I don't understand, I went to Google, asked Google, and Google explained it to me. On the final exam, I was the only foreign student that did not have to rewrite the exam. At the end of the course, I was awarded the most improved student, which in itself, again, something that I'm proud of. As a person, the opportunities are here in the Guyana Defence Force. When I left school, I dropped out of school just as I was about to do CXC. But I came to the GDF and I grabbed that opportunity. To date, I have a number of diplomas and certificates that I am proud of. So I did not come to the GDF and relax. But I'm not one to like to say of my achievements and brag about them. I don't do that. It's just do my things quietly and just put it aside. So there is room for development here in the Guyana Defence Force. I think all the non-commissioned officers, including the warrant officers, should grab the opportunities with both hands. It is more easier now in the 21st century to go to school and excel academically than it was when I just joined the Guyana Defence Force. I can say that probably because I would have experienced both eras. You don't always get opportunities like this to express those stories, and I'm happy that you guys came up, whoever decided to come up with this initiative. It's a great one, and I know that the support will be given by the veterans, because we all have stories to tell, diverse stories, some good, some bad. But as a member of the Guyana Defence Force, like I said initially, it wasn't my intention to join. And even when I would have completed the training, I still wasn't too keen in continuing to serve. But then I took it one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. So days became months, months became year, and then the years add up to retirement. Right? For all those youngsters out there who are seeking an opportunity to excel academically and financially, because there are a lot of folks out in the general population who feels that the money in the GDF is too small and there's not much that you can do. But that is not true. If you have proper financial accountabilities and you have a budget, you can excel financially in every aspect that you want to do that. You have to make the sacrifice. Joining the Guyana Defence Force will always be the best opportunity. Service to the nation is always the best service. Right? Serving the officers and ranks of the Guyana Defence Force was always fulfilling to me as I go along my career path. Every single day as a warrant officer, as a non-commissioned officer, whether junior or senior, I was happy to help every single person, reach out to them, go beyond the normal call of duty to ensure that the Guyana Defence Force continues on the trajectory that is expected by the government. So I will urge all youngsters, those who are hesitant like I was, and those who are already here and made a decision to come and serve the Guyana Defence Force and choose whichever career path within the Guyana Defence Force you think best suits you. But the Guyana Defence Force will always be the best place to be. It is always great to serve your country.